Sorry for the interruption there, but just want to wrap this up a little bit. So where I left off was with the commentary that students do. So they give some positive, they give some constructive feedback as well. So the last part that they give is, well, what could be improved upon or made clearer to your classmates in the screencast? So, and they're always reminded to be clear, be specific, and be kind. So I give them the example that good feedback is not great job. That's not constructive. Be specific. What about what they did was well done, and what about what they did maybe has room for improvement. Okay, so in terms of the outcome of the way I constructed these lessons, this project, so some things I really thought went well was that students were able to come at this learning in a multitude of ways. So being able to see the final product before they actually began working, I thought was a really excellent change to this system this year. So working together is always a plus. So what I read in my research was about something called student team reading and writing, and that how that collaborative element of many projects is definitely a great way to help students learn so they can support each other, especially with something that's really challenging like this project is. Students were able to remain engaged throughout. So there was partner work at the beginning when they looked at literary devices. They were able to play a game that was engaging. They worked together to analyze this challenging text. And then lastly, the use of technology was also really helpful to them as well. So a couple added bonuses, and I felt like these were really great, was the fluency practice that was built in, and then also working to support their comprehension through paraphrasing and summarizing. All right, so in terms of a reflection, what I felt went really well were a few things. So the review game for literary devices was successful. So it helped me see what they understood, and also it was just engaging, and they were extremely invested in it, even though there wasn't actually a prize for winning. I always just tell them, you're winning, you're playing for the glory. And usually that does the trick for them. So seeing that final outcome, the modeling was definitely worth it. So in my notes, I jotted down that students literally said, oh, now I see what we're supposed to do. And the fact that they were able to rewatch that throughout the process and check back in with what a good final product looked like helped guide their work as well. Seeing this process broke down into steps, into small steps, helped students be successful as well. So if I was just to give them the whole overview of the project and say go, I know that my students would not be able to get it done well or get it done on time. So having it broken down was key to having them finish this on time. So that's crucial. And the collaborative work also went well. So students noted and they would say things like this out loud. So even though they weren't working with a friend, because I assigned their partners, they definitely found that this was a good way to get this work done. So it would be overwhelming for almost all of the students to do this individually. Therefore, the partnership really was definitely beneficial. So, and like I mentioned before, the fluency practice and that summarizing and paraphrasing based on the research that I read was key as well. So there was a lot of learning built into just a 4-day process, and able to build in a lot of little mini lessons along the way. So in terms of things that I think maybe could be improved or changed, there's always room for improvement, even in a teacher's work. That would be, I think the paraphrasing lesson could have been stronger and longer. If students saw more than one example right out of the gates about how to write that summary, it would have been good. So I felt like most of the partnerships I had to go over their summary and make sure that they got everything into it that they needed to. Whereas it could have been better if I was able to address the whole class, it would have been more efficient in terms of time. I think at least for some of the students, I would maybe reduce the number of literary devices that were introduced. Some students were overwhelmed. They felt like it was a lot, and I think they were probably right when they were trying to pick which to analyze in their stanza. So this was sort of a double-edged sword. Giving them enough made sure that there were two in their stanza, but I think maybe for some students, especially those that are a little lower that struggle, narrowing down these for them would have been helpful. Also, in terms of vocabulary, helping students find specific dictionary resources could have helped save time too. So, students often struggle with finding definitions that they can understand, and helping them specifically choosing sources ahead of time would have been helpful. So, I think adding a peer review before they record their final project could have been helpful as well. Getting some extra feedback from someone other than me would have been a worthwhile step also. But overall, I felt like I was pleased with the research that I did for this project, even though I didn't focus on one specific skill. Being able to look at how can students work collaboratively on paraphrasing, on fluency, on vocabulary, on figurative language, and putting this all together in a really complex project showed me the way to really make this a strong project and a purposeful project, and the student learning and the outcomes I felt were overall extremely positive, and this is definitely a project I will do again next year.